Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Wednesday evening, December 13, 2023. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video, share it, subscribe and tap the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a brand new video. Feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know what the weather has been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so let us take a look at what the U.S. National Hurricane Center is showing on their 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook. We can see that as of 7 p.m. on Thursday, November 30, they haven't updated it. It's showing right now that there is nothing new that's expected during the next 7 days. And that could change in a couple of days or maybe a couple of hours, as both the Euro and the GFS models are showing something that could develop maybe tropically or maybe subtropically. Either way, it's definitely going to be a rainmaker across portions of the Atlantic basin. If we actually take a look at the next 7 days on the Euro model, we're going to be focusing our attention here across portions of the Western Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and portions of the Southwestern Atlantic, including Florida and the Bahamas. We're going to start to see an increase in moisture. Look at all of those greens and yellows that represent a lot of rainfall. Not to mention an L that represents an area of low pressure. So who knows? Maybe something could form. If not a broad area of low pressure, maybe a potential tropical cyclone or a tropical depression, or it could just be a non-tropical low pressure system that the United States is used to getting. Either way, we're gonna be keeping our eye on the system because as we can see as we move out to the next 168 hours, within that time frame, look at this. This is the next 108 hours. Look at all of the greens that represent rainfall that's definitely expected to pass across portions of Jamaica into Cuba, all attached to this huge area of low pressure. And as it moves out, it's bringing all of that moisture into portions of Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti. And we can see that it has a very long tail stretching all the way from, I guess, portion of New York City, wherever the low should be located by that time, according to the Euro. Keep in mind that it is subject to change, especially considering that it is this far out. And look at the long line of showers and thunderstorms associated with it, stretching down into portions of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And then by the end of the 168 hours, the area of low pressure is out of there, but we still have the leftover remains of the moisture associated with it, stringing along southward into portions of the Central Caribbean. And that's just the Euro. What does the GFS show? If we take a look, we start to see something similar taking shape by about Saturday in the Gulf of Mexico. Then it hitting portions of the southeastern United States, and then look at that. The green that represent moisture across portions of Jamaica into Haiti. It's a bit less robust on the GFS than what we see on the Euro. Either way, it is quite concerning. We don't usually see this taking place in December at all. So it's quite something to watch. And we see the long string of moisture associated with it. So we do see some amount of consensus and we do see some amount of contrast as well. So we just have to wait and see exactly what unfolds with this system. Either way, when it comes to the rainfall totals for the next 7 days, we're looking at the next 168 hours. We can see the totals across portions of the Greater Antilles, the Southwestern Atlantic, including the Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, Florida, the Eastern United States, the Gulf of Mexico. Look at all of those lighter shades of blues and purples, not to mention some burgundy colors getting all the way up into 7-inch range, even some yellows in there across portions of southern Florida on the Euro model. The GFS, not so robust, showing the lighter shades of blues, yes, across portions of Jamaica, more purples across eastern and northeastern parishes in Jamaica especially. We can see majority of that rainfall is confined to portions of the Gulf of Mexico, the southeastern United States, as well as portions of the Bahamas. So it's a bit, a bit far out, but we're gonna be keeping our eye on this system. We're gonna be keeping you posted, as Jamaica could be indirectly affected by some of its outer bands if it actually does develop. Alright, so let us move on. Let us take a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening. We can still see that we have that area of high pressure, still sending all of those easterly trade winds across the main development region into the Caribbean. We can see two cold fronts, one right here stretching all the way from the northern coast of Africa all the way down into portions of the northern main development region. To the south of that, broken lines here represent a trough, and to the west or the northwest of that, to the north of the Greater Antilles, another stationary front across portions of the Bahamas and the northwestern Caribbean. Taking a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before the sun went down, we can see the clouds associated with that trough to the far east of Trinidad and Tobago, the clouds associated with that surface trough of low pressure that's attached to the cold front right there to the northern section of the main development region. We can also see the other clouds associated with that other cold front across portions of the Bahamas, Florida, the Western Caribbean as well. And we can also see those low level clouds pushing from east to west, especially east northeast to west southwest, moving fast, especially across the southern Caribbean with that fast flow of winds, all courtesy of that easterly trade wind brought about that by that ridge of high pressure. We'll be talking more about the Caribbean's weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Wednesday, December 13th. So it was stated that we would have received some amount of morning rainfall across sections of eastern Jamaica, then some of that rainfall spilling into central and western Jamaica during the afternoon. And for your information, we know eastern Jamaica, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey. So Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew for the morning. Central and Western Jamaica for the afternoon. Central Jamaica, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Middlesex, so St. Anne, St. Mary, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine. Western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall. So St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney. And what ended up happening? We can see that the visible satellite images were posted on our Twitter page at 10:45 a.m. Keep in mind that these posts aren't only made on our Twitter page, but our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok page. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there as we make some other posts that are not made here on our YouTube page. So we can see the visible satellite images posted bringing some amount of, well, showing some amount of high level clouds. We see that the high level clouds are very much dominating, pushing from southwest to northeast, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now on the rainbow satellite images. We see all of those greens, yellows, oranges, and we're saying where are the thunderstorms, where is the rain? All of these are high level clouds. Those are what are preventing the afternoon convection that we are supposed to be receiving. We have a lot of high level clouds and it's limiting all of the sunlight across the island, so we don't have that daytime heating to trigger that afternoon rainfall that the models have been predicting for the past week. Either way, they have been doing a good job at keeping down the temperatures and they shall continue to do so. Alright, so let's get back to the map. So we can see on the visible satellite images that yes, we have those high level clouds pushing from southwest to northeast. But if we look closely, we can see the low level clouds coming in from the east across the island. So we indeed had some amount of isolated shores across sections of some eastern parishes. Portland, St. Mary, St. Thomas got in on some of that. And even in the afternoon, we had the Cuban Doppler radar images being posted at 4:50 p.m., highlighting the greens and the yellows that represent light to moderate or even heavy rainfall across sections of Portland, St. Mary's, St. Anne, even sections of St. Elizabeth got in on some of that. And we even have confirmation of the very cloudy weather that we had across Jamaica for today from Shawnee Weather, as well as Shawnee Reynolds, sorry, as well as Kiva Gray, stating overcast in both areas. And even on our partners YouTube page, if you don't know by now, we have a partnership with See Jamaica's YouTube channel where they show live streams of the corporate era. whether it's the live stream of Upper St. Andrew, the Kingston Harbor, Crossroads, Halfway Tree. Right here, we're looking at Halfway Tree. And we can see that it was indeed overcast. And we indeed had some amount of isolated showers with some of these clouds getting heavy in some spots. We can even see a rain shaft right there across the hills of St. Andrew. And I indeed got a little isolated shower across my area where I work in Kingston during the afternoon hours. This was about 12:30 p.m. and that was about the time that it fell at my area of work as well. Taking a look at the visible satellite images, we can see much of the same. Most of those clouds that we saw in the morning across the east pushed towards the west, affecting sections of southwestern Jamaica. And then we had those clouds coming into sections of St. Anne, St. Mary, and Portland during the late afternoon to early evening hours. But we can't see it that well on the infrared satellite images right here. What we can see well are the upper level clouds pushing from southwest to northeast across the island. Taking a look at the Cuban Doppler radar images right now, we can see some amount of greens that represent rainfall off to the southwest of the island off the coast of Westmoreland, as well as right there to the southeast of St. Thomas. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can see that we have 26 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 24 degrees Celsius in Kingston, and by about 3 a.m. on Thursday, temperature should dip down to about 24 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 23 degrees Celsius in Kingston. All right, this is looking quite interesting. Look at these temperature forecasts from the GFS. This is valid for 18Z on Thursday. When we calculate that, that is 1 p.m. on Thursday. And this is actually looking good for majority of the Caribbean. We're starting to see more of those grays as well as some of these blues that represent below normal temperatures. And we know the grays represent normal temperatures. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see the above normal. We don't want to see the yellows, the oranges at all. We want the temperatures to be a bit down, and that's what we're going to be getting in on for the next couple of days. Jamaica is embedded in grays, some dots of blue surrounding the island, and that is good. The normal temperatures for the month of December, as you can see by this bar graph, December on the far right, 87 degrees Fahrenheit for Jamaica. When we look at the thermometer, 87 degrees Fahrenheit is about the same as 30 degrees Celsius. So that's the average temperature that we're going to be receiving for Thursday, and we're indeed grateful for that. As relates to the dry air map, we can see that the dry air is represented by the key at the bottom, the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and the whites within those reds. And we do see that the area across central and the western Caribbean near Jamaica has more in the way of blues that represent a lot of moist air. All of that is associated with all of those high level clouds. Not to say that there's not dry air there, but we're not really seeing that much on this map. Majority of the dry air seems to be right there across portions of the central and eastern Caribbean, not to mention right there off the coast of Africa where we see those reds and white within those reds. And we can see this is the reason why right over there is so dry. A lot of saran dust, and this is a very robust plume of saran dust with this very dark shade of brown. That's what we don't want to see. This is what causes the hazy skies. This is what causes the asthma and sinusitis and other respiratory illnesses to be triggered in some people. This is a huge plume of dust right here. This is the most vigorous plume of dust I've seen in a good couple of months. When we see these darker shades of browns, that's the Saharan dust plume that we don't want to see. And we hope that it stays across the waters of the main development region. And if it's going to be making its way westward, hopefully majority of that vigorous plume dwindles and, gets down to a lighter shade of brown by the time it makes it to the Caribbean. And keep in mind that this map is valid for 2 p.m. on Thursday, so this is where the dust is going to be by then. Taking a look at the sea surface temperature map, so we can still see that we have a lot of warm sea surface temperatures. Anything that is yellow or orange is above normal. The whites represent average, the blues represent below average, as we can see by the key at the bottom. The majority of the Atlantic is above average. So if there is something that's going to be taking advantage of all of those warm sea surface temperatures across the Gulf of Mexico and possibly develop and head into the southeastern United States, it has a lot of warm water to do so. And we can also see that we still have that El Nino going strong. But if we remember past videos, there's a chance that the El Nino could dwindle and maybe even change over to a La Nina that could favor tropical cyclone development across the Atlantic with the lack of upward motion across the eastern Caribbean, and that is valid for possibly next summer into the peak of hurricane season. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But it was just a prediction if you remember the videos in the past. Taking a look at the wave forecast, we can see that both the Euro and the GFS models are showing the wave forecast right here. Look at the blues that surround the island. We know that from the key at the bottom right, the blues represent anywhere from 1 to close to 2 meter wave heights, and that's what's being forecasted by the GFS model as well. And that's because the winds are not going to be that strong at all. Look at what's surrounding the island in terms of winds. More in the ways of blues and the greens that represent anywhere from maybe 10 to close to 20 knot winds. And we can also see that for the most part, the winds are coming in from the east northeast across the northern portions of the island, coming in from, let's say, the east and the south coast. Either way, we see that air piling up across sections of some southern parishes. Wherever we have those darker shades of blues, that's where we're going to be having the least amount of winds. That's where all of the air is going to be piling up. That's where all of the cumulus clouds are going to be turning themselves into maybe not necessarily cumulonimbus clouds, even although we're still in the edge of the thunderstorm season. It's wrapping up as we speak. We can still see some amount of these cumulus clouds possibly getting heavy and causing some amount of isolated showers, especially across the southern parishes in Jamaica. So maybe sections of Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, sections of Defina, St. Elizabeth, and Westmoreland. That's where the air is going to be piling up. And with the upper level winds coming in from the west for tomorrow, it's definitely going to be favoring both in the way of northern and southern parishes. So there's no set parish or side of the island that's going to be favored over the other. Both areas are going to be favorable for some amount of rainfall. Alright, so let us take a look at the actual precipitation forecast. We're at the meat of the matter. These are the maps that we like to see, the rainfall maps. So this is looking at 12 a.m. tonight. So this is midnight tonight. Look at what we see. Where do we see the consensus? Where do we see the blues that represent rainfall? We see the blues across sections of some northern parishes. The Euro showing St. Anne, section of St. Mary and Portland getting in on some amount of rainfall. The GFS showing something similar, but confining more of the darker shades of blues that represent rainfall across sections of Portland and even sections of eastern St. Thomas. Skipping ahead to about 7 a.m., we start to see some not much change, more in the way of blues across sections of some northern and eastern parishes, more so out to sea on the Euro model. The GFS more so on land, especially across sections of St. Mary, Portland, and St. Thomas. And that was valid for 7 a.m. Now let's look at 11 a.m. on the Euro and the GFS. Much of the same. Sections of some eastern and northeastern parishes in Jamaica still getting in on some of that rainfall. Not so much across sections of central and western Jamaica. And we can also see the waters to the north of Jamaica getting in on some of that rainfall. Not to mention the waters to the south of Jamaica as well. Then finally, 3 p.m. Look at what we see. Sections of northeastern Jamaica still getting in on that rainfall. So maybe something similar to what happened today. Sections of St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland getting in on that afternoon rainfall, as well as sections of St. Elizabeth, and we're starting to incorporate sections of Westmoreland and Hanover. So that was what happened today, as we remember what we showed earlier. So we could get in on some of that. And the GFS is trying to incorporate sections of St. Catherine, Kingston, and St. Andrew. So we'll see exactly what unfolds with that. The Euro is a bit more, well, much more messy, showing more of that rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes in Jamaica. We'll see exactly how that goes. Either way, both accumulated precipitation forecast maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing some amount of rainfall affecting the island for tomorrow. Keep in mind that both of these maps are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Thursday. Not saying that it's going to be raining from now all the way up until then, but within that time period, these are the spots that are going to be picking up the most in the way of rainfall. Sections of St. Mary, Portland, sections of St. Thomas on the Euro model. GFS, something similar. Basically the same areas. Euro showing up to 0.32 of an inch of rainfall for the total. GFS showing up to 0.62 of an inch of rainfall. Either way, we're in the month of December. We're in the first month of our dry season. We'll take all the rainfall that we can get before we head into the peak of our dry season, and we're actually, begging for more rainfall to come. More rain is always good as long as it doesn't cause too much flooding. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So as stated, we have a lot of low-level clouds coming in from the east, affecting sections of the Leeward Islands today, sections of maybe the Trinidad and Tobago area, sections of Venezuela, Guyana as usual, sections of southern Venezuela, western Colombia, sections of Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize, Guatemala, the Yucatan Peninsula, sections of the Cayman Islands, Cuba, the Bahamas, southeastern Florida. And if we take a look at the Doppler radar images starting from today up to now. So this is what it looks like right now. We know the greens on the Doppler radar images represent some amount of light to moderate rainfall. We do see that sections of Puerto Rico are getting in on some of that, especially northern Puerto Rico and eastern Puerto Rico, especially to the waters to the south of Puerto Rico. Not so much happening across the British and US Virgin Islands right now, or St. Martin or St. Kitts, but definitely the waters surrounding Antigua and Barbuda, the waters surrounding or to the east of Montserrat, surrounding Guadeloupe, Dominica as usual. And if we put these images in motion from today, we saw that yes, we indeed had some amount of rainfall taking place across sections of Puerto Rico, pushing from east to west. Not so much across the US and British Virgin Islands, St. Kitts and Nevis or St. Martin, but we do see that rainfall coming in from the east to affect sections of Montserrat, Guadeloupe, sections of Dominica, Martinique. And if we go onto the Barbados radar, we can see the rainfall even better. Sections of Martinique gonna be getting in on some more rainfall tonight. Sections of St. Lucia might pick up on some of that rainfall as well. Not so much right now for St. Vincent and the Grenadines or Grenada, but we do see that rainfall passing to the north of Tobago, to the east of Tobago as well. Some of that could head into sections of eastern Trinidad tonight. Taking a look at the wider view of Doppler radar images, we can see that rainfall right there across portions of the northwestern Bahamas, sections of eastern Florida, sections of Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula, Guatemala, not to mention to the north of the ABC Islands right there, as well as Guyana. Taking a look at the temperature forecast, I am pleased to announce that majority of the Caribbean should be receiving some amount of average to slightly below average temperatures. It's the areas to the south that are going to be getting on those above normal temperatures as represented by those yellows and oranges. So Central America, Northern South America, anywhere from Barbados and St. Lucia southward. So Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, those spots are going to be getting in on those above normal temperatures. As it relates to the Sahara and dust forecast, we can see that majority of the Caribbean should be in the clear for 2 p.m. on Thursday, with all of the dust associated with the Sahara Desert across the eastern portion of the Main Development Region and Africa. Taking a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we can see, well, not tomorrow, now it's tomorrow. Alright, so we can see that we still have much of the same plaguing majority of the Caribbean. More and we have purples that represent 2 to 3 meter wave heights, and that's because we still have a mixture of those greens and yellows, and we know the greens represent 20 knot winds, the yellows represent 25 knot winds, getting up into the burgundy colors that represent up to maybe 30 or maybe up close to 35 knot winds. We can see the general flow coming in from the northeast or maybe the east northeast across majority of the Caribbean basin, which explains the choppy seas, the 2 to 3 meter wave heights that's expected. As it relates to the rainfall forecast map now, Keep in mind that both of these maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Thursday. Not saying that it's going to be raining from now all the way up until then, but within that time period, these are the areas that are going to be getting in on that rainfall. And we know when the rainfall totals are showing the reds and the purples, that's showing basically the areas that are going to be getting the on and off continuous rainfall that could trigger some amount of flash flooding. And we see some of that definitely across sections of southern Florida, sections of the Bahamas. If they're not already getting it right now, they're gonna be getting it sometime within now, between now and 10 p.m. on Thursday. So the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, sections of Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula, Guatemala, Honduras, sections of Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. Some isolated showers in store for sections of Western Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, coastal areas of Suriname, French Guyana. Definitely some rainfall in store for Trinidad and Tobago. It could be that rain band that we saw earlier, so they're definitely in store for some more rainfall tonight. Not so much in the way of rainfall for sections of Grenada or St. Vincent or Barbados, but maybe sections of St. Vincent. Not St. Vincent, St. Lucia, sorry. Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe, and even sections of maybe Antigua and Barbuda. Maybe just some isolated pockets of rainfall. Sections of Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, sections of Cuba as well. Not to mention sections of the Cayman Islands and the Jamaica, just as we stated earlier. And we know that when both maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing something similar like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.